Ah, man, I'm tired today. Speaking of being tired, I think we should talk about tires. What better place to talk about tires than at a dealership where they have tires? What I want to do today is talk about adventure tires. So I found a nice collection here of some of the most common types that we can play with. Selecting the right tire for your adventure bike is easily one of the most important things you can do as far as bike setup. And we've got 4 different tires here, and they really fall into 3 different categories. We've got one that's a road bias tire for touring. We've got one that's a 50-50 tire that crosses both lines, and then we've got 2 tires here for more aggressive off-road use. The road bias tire, especially the one that's 90% road, maybe 10% off-road, is going to have much more surface area in contact with the road. The block pattern is going to be much wider, and the siping or the channels are going to be much narrower and not as deep. The reason for this is it makes the bike feel more stable when you're cornering, braking, and accelerating on pavement. It doesn't move and wiggle as much, and they can use a shallower tread, and because they have so much contact, it spreads all the heat and all the wear over a larger area. It allows them to get a much higher mileage out of a tire with having less depth. As you move up to the 50-50 tire, this one here is the Heidenau K60, and it's very popular out there. There's some other tires that are like it, and it's what I would consider a true 50-50 tire. This is for the person who's going to do a lot of long mileage and a lot of travel and needs it to be both good on the pavement and decent off-road. And this tire really bridges the two. It's decent at both, not great at either. Compared to the street tire, it's going to be a much thicker tread, and that's how they're going to get more miles out of it. The thicker tread also means when they put these large gaps in the tire here, as it rides through mud and dirt, it's more likely to sling all of that out. So you keep an open tread, and you can use the sharp edge where it can dig in and get grip off-road. The reason it's not great off-road is what makes it decent on-road, which is this center bar that runs all the way down the center. That center bar allows us to have more rubber in contact with the road at all times. It makes it quieter for the road, but more importantly, allows the mileage of the tire to be much greater. It's going to last a long time. And that's why this is a great traveler's tire, because they get something decent on both, and they're not worried about running out of tire a lot. This particular tire here is a knobby. It's got a pretty good street bias to the knob. It's a very large tread block, and they're similar to the 50-50 tire. What they've done is remove the center block of rubber. That's going to make the tire a little louder, and it's going to have more flex. The bike is going to feel a little squirmier when you're on the road, braking and cornering on pavement, but it also means that you have a sharp edge and you have more tire to grip into the ground and to dig in, so when you're off-road, you have that traction. And this is very common in its dimensions to most of your adventure knobby tires. So they're trying to make some kind of compromise here because there's less in contact than these other tires. It's going to wear out faster. And because of the knobs free floating and not being connected, they twist and turn while you're on the street going through corners, which is going to make the bike squiggle and wiggle more. Now, one of the myths is that you have less traction on a knobby tire. The reality is the compounds on these are all going to be fairly similar. The way they get the mileage out of them, it has to do with the tread design and the depth of the actual material or the rubber there. So the most aggressive tire we have here today is the Metzler Carew 3. And this one is just about to the limit as far as having a street legal tire. The amount of tire in contact with the ground and the width of the actual gap between that is almost equal. That means it's got the maximum amount of space to fling out mud and muck. And it's got a better opportunity for each one of those to dig into the ground and give you good grip. Now the depth of this actual rubber is the same, almost identically, within 2 millimeters as both of these other tires. And again, that's how they're going to help get mileage. But because it has less surface area in contact, it means that all the weight, all the heat that's generated by riding this bike down the road, it's going to wear out a lot faster than these other tires. So if you're going to be mainly off-road, or if you're doing some kind of event or trip where it's really important that you have maximum traction off-road, you start on the aggressive side and you work your way down. If you're a touring rider and you're just doing gravel roads heading out to ghost towns, you might want to go all the way down to this 90-10 or down to a 50-50. because they're going to give you that mileage, but they're going to feel much better on the road itself. If you're very aggressive or if it's very muddy, those blocks can still clog up, and it doesn't matter what tire you have. If it's full of mud and it's all blocked up, you have no traction whatsoever. How you ride your bike and how you load your bike is going to make a difference. If you're really heavy on the throttle and you're spinning the tire all the time, it doesn't matter. These tires are going to wear out much faster, either on the road because of flex or off-road because they're going to be spinning them and rounding off the edges. And once you round off the edges here, this tire is not going to have the same traction as when it's fresh. Loading is going to make a big difference. If you load your bike heavy, if you have big panniers and you pack everything you possibly can on the bike or even carry a passenger, that's going to create more flex in the tire, and that's going to generate more heat. That's going to wear your tires out more. So the lighter your bike, the lighter your pack, the longer these are going to last. So the greatest wear factor on these tires really has to do with heat. When you drop that air pressure, and people will do this, and it's okay, to get better traction off-road. But that means more flex, more heat. And if you run those low pressures when you go on the pavement, that flex will wear out your tire much, much quicker. Also, hotter temperatures will wear them out, as well as sharp-edged rocks and these sort of environments that you might ride in. If you're new to the adventure world, stepping up to more aggressive tire may help you learn as you're gaining those techniques and gaining those skills and give you a little more room for error. But as you get better, as your skills improve, you can get less and less aggressive in your tire, because in the end, it's the skill that's going to make the greatest difference. So be honest with yourself and buy the right tire for your adventure.